There are prayers that rise from pure hearts, and there are prayers whispered from places of jealousy, anger, and insecurity. Not every voice that calls your name before God is asking him to bless you. Some secretly ask heaven to slow you down. Some privately desire that your steps stumble. Some cry out for your downfall while smiling to your face. These are silent petitions spoken in rooms you will never enter, altars you will never see, and hearts you were never meant to hear. But tonight, a God who hears both the public and the private is stepping into every hidden place where your name has been misused. Every secret prayer sent to cage you is being silenced. Every whispered request for your failure is being buried. Heaven rejects every petition not aligned with your destiny. Only the voice of God will speak over your future. Every other voice is being shut down by fire. Many battles that appear physical are rooted in spiritual words released in secrecy. Someone's tears can mention your name in bitterness, and suddenly doors close without explanation. Someone's envy can push them to kneel in the dark and ask God to humble you, not knowing that what they call humility is actually sabotage. In every generation, destinies have been slowed down by hidden voices that pretend to be righteous. Yet heaven knows the intentions behind every prayer. God weighs motives, not just words. Before the throne of the Almighty, every deceitful petition is exposed in its raw truth. There are people who see your rising and feel threatened, not inspired. Instead of praying for their own progress, they secretly beg heaven to interrupt yours. They ask God to keep you small so that they can remain comfortable. They ask him to close your doors so they can feel secure. They pray for your circle to break, your strength to weaken, and your blessings to scatter. These voices do not confront you, but they confront your destiny in silence. Yet tonight, every voice speaking against your elevation is being muted by the authority of God. There are altars where your name has been mentioned without your consent. Some prayers are not spoken in anger, but in fear of being overshadowed. Some call your name in the presence of God with a request that you remain behind them. They ask heaven to keep you ordinary so they don't feel uncomfortable with your greatness. They cry in private and use your name as the cause of their frustrations. They kneel in secrecy and ask God to make your journey difficult so they can feel justified in their lack of progress. But heaven does not grant prayers rooted in insecurity. The God who sees hearts is shutting down every voice that wishes you stagnation. Some battles in your life were never caused by demons, but by the wrong people praying the wrong prayers with your name attached. Someone's jealousy can enter the atmosphere like smoke. Someone's resentment can release a cloud over your breakthrough. Someone's silent wish for your failure can become a spiritual roadblock if God does not intervene. But tonight, divine intervention is rewriting your spiritual environment. Every negative request released against you is returning to silence. Every spiritual cloud formed to dim your light is being blown away by the breath of God. There are people who pray for you publicly but pray against you privately. In public, they lift their hands and ask God to bless you. In private, they whisper complaints about how God is lifting you. They testify with their mouths and then murmur with their hearts. They smile when you speak but sigh when you succeed. Their voices carry double intentions. Yet the God who reads hearts before he hears words has already separated truth from deception. Tonight, every double-tongued prayer is being silenced forever. Some individuals secretly ask God to delay your marriage because they are unhappy in theirs. Some beg heaven to frustrate your financial doors because money has never obeyed them. Some request God to expose your weaknesses, not to help you, but to humiliate you. Hidden voices can carry powerful spiritual weight when not confronted. That is why tonight, the fire of the Almighty is entering the realm of unseen prayers. Your name is being retrieved from every altar of jealousy. Your destiny is being removed from every tongue of bitterness. Every hidden voice calling you backward is being quieted with finality. Your rising has created internal storms in hearts that appeared calm. Some people thought you would never grow, never advance, never change levels. When they saw God's favor resting on you, their peace disappeared. Instead of celebrating your elevation, they cried out to God in hidden frustration. And their quiet frustration turned into spiritual petitions that targeted your progress. But the God who lifted you will not allow anyone to pray you down. Tonight, heaven is issuing a divine restraining order against every voice speaking reduction into your future. Your name has traveled into homes you have never visited. It has been mentioned in conversations you were never part of. It has been uttered in midnight prayers you did not know existed. Some have used your name as a comparison, asking God why he is favoring you more than them. Some have used your name as a complaint, asking God to slow you down so they can catch up. But God does not respond to jealousy. He does not answer prayers rooted in envy. He judges the heart before he moves his hand. Tonight, every jealous petition made with your name is being turned into dust. There are people who kneel before God only when your life seems too bright for their comfort. They go into spiritual warfare, not for their breakthrough, but for your delay. They cry for the wrong reasons. They fast with the wrong intention. They call your name, not seeking your blessing, but your frustration. Yet the God of justice sits in the throne room, rejecting every evil-intentioned request. No prayer built on bitterness has permission to function in your destiny. Tonight, the judgment of God is silencing every hidden voice. Your destiny was not designed to respond to the emotions of others. Your progress was not placed in the hands of those who fear your success. Your future does not bow to anyone's insecurity. Before you were born, heaven already declared your rising. That rising cannot be reversed by someone's secret tears. It cannot be altered by someone's private jealousy. It cannot be delayed by someone's hidden prayer. Tonight, the voice of God is restoring your divine order, shutting down every voice that opposes it. There are people who act like intercessors, but operate like spiritual assassins. They pretend to pray for your protection, but secretly ask for your exposure. They act like guardians, but behave like saboteurs. Their mouths speak blessings, but their hearts release curses. They carry your name to God, but in ways that bend your destiny instead of building it. Tonight, God is disconnecting you from every false intercessor. Your life is being preserved from every person who uses prayer as a weapon instead of a covering. Your name has been dragged into secret prayer meetings, fueled by envy. They gather to analyze your progress, not to encourage it. They gather to question your blessings, not to celebrate them. They gather to release spiritual requests shaped by resentment, fear, and competition. But tonight, God is scattering every gathering where your name has been wrongly spoken. Every altar that used your name unjustly is losing its power. Every voice that rose against you in that meeting is being swallowed in silence. Some have used your name to bargain with God. They told God that you do not deserve what he gave you. They argued that your blessing should have been theirs. They compared your journey to theirs and made your progress the focus of their prayer. But heaven does not negotiate destiny. Heaven does not trade blessings. Heaven does not reassign glory because someone feels left behind. Tonight, every attempt to spiritually bargain your destiny away is being nullified by fire. Every silent prayer against you forms a shadow in the spiritual realm. These shadows follow destinies, slowing them, confusing them, or suffocating their breakthrough. Many wonder why their blessings take too long, why their progress feels heavy, why their opportunities collapse. Sometimes it is because a hidden voice has released a word into the atmosphere, requesting your stumbling. But tonight, light enters every shadow. The fire of God is consuming every silent prayer that carries your name into darkness. Some have asked God to remove people from your life so that you remain alone. Some have asked him to disconnect you from destiny helpers because your rising intimidates them. Some have asked him to shut down your influence, slow down your creativity, or hide your gifts. They prayed in pain, not in purity. They prayed in comparison, not in compassion. But the God who authored your influence will not withdraw it for the comfort of envy. Tonight, every such prayer is being reversed. Your footsteps are being restored to divine alignment. No voice will speak you out of position again. No tongue will whisper you into stagnation. No petition will request heaven to forget you. Tonight, heaven remembers your name for the right reasons. Heaven responds to your purpose, not your opposition. Heaven honors your assignment, not your critics. Every voice calling you backward is being drowned under the sound of God's decree. God is shutting down every private voice that misrepresented your identity before him. He's silencing every jealous request made at the altar. He's rejecting every manipulative prayer uttered in secret. He's reversing every wish for your downfall. Tonight, only one voice will define your future, and that is the voice of God. All others are losing their authority. This is the night heaven takes your name out of the mouths of the wrong people. This is the night God retrieves your destiny from every hidden prayer that sought to bend it. This is the night your spiritual atmosphere is cleared. This is the night every opposing voice is silenced by holy fire. There are people who enter prayer not to seek God's will, but to seek control. They present their emotions as petitions. They disguise their insecurities as spiritual discernment. They use your name as a point of reference for their frustration, hoping that heaven will take their side, simply because they knelt. But God does not respond to manipulation. He does not serve human insecurity. He does not bow to the bitterness of those who pretend to be righteous. Tonight, every prayer spoken to control your destiny is being returned to silence. Some have asked God to shut down your opportunities because they did not receive the same grace. They hide behind prayer to justify the competition in their hearts. They kneel not for breakthrough, but for balance, asking God to reduce you so life feels fair. But heaven does not build fairness by lowering others. Heaven lifts according to purpose, not comparison. Tonight, every prayer rooted in competition is being rejected permanently. Your blessings have irritated hearts that never expected you to rise. Your growth has challenged those who believed you would remain beneath them. When God began opening doors for you, their secret discomfort turned into silent complaints before heaven. They asked why you were lifted so quickly. They questioned God's decision. They tried to convince heaven that you were unqualified. But God does not consult the opinions of those who fear your progress. Tonight, your qualification is established by divine decree. Some have cried tears that carried your name in resentment. Tears can be powerful in the realm of the spirit when they come from purity. But tears born from jealousy carry a different fragrance. They ascend to heaven, but they are refused at the gate. God sees the motive behind every tear. He discerns the intent behind every cry. Tonight, every tear raised against you is drying up without effect. There are those who do not wish to see you destroyed, but they silently desire to see you slowed down. They cannot handle your speed. They cannot handle your acceleration. They fear that if you keep rising at your current pace, you will enter territories they expected to occupy first. So they whisper prayers for God to slow your momentum. But heaven is not slowing you down. Heaven is increasing your speed. Every voice requesting delay is being overruled. Your name has stirred emotions you did not provoke. Some look at your progress and feel abandoned by God. Instead of asking for their own blessing, they ask God to halt yours until he remembers them. But your destiny is not God's apology to anyone. Your breakthrough is not evidence of their rejection. God can lift both, but the bitterness in their prayer disqualifies their request. Tonight, heaven is shutting every door their emotions tried to close on your behalf. Hidden voices have attempted to rewrite your story in the spiritual realm. They spoke words hoping to alter the direction of your path. They attempted to reverse your rising through prayer, clothed in righteousness, but filled with envy. They attempted to reshape your identity with their private petitions, but only God has the authority to define you. Tonight, every unauthorized voice is being silenced. There are people who love you publicly, but resent your progress privately. Their hearts cannot reconcile your success with their expectations. They do not wish evil for you, but they do not wish greatness either. So they pray for moderation. They ask God to keep you safe, but not too visible. They ask God to bless you, but not too much. Yet your destiny was wired to shine without apology. Tonight, heaven is breaking every limitation spoken through balanced prayers that were meant to keep you average. Some have used your name as evidence before heaven, trying to prove that you are rising because of human strength and not divine favor. They pointed at your achievements and asked God to remind you of humility, not realizing that he is the one who established your elevation. They do not understand that God lifts whom he chooses. Tonight, every attempt to diminish your divine favor is being dissolved. Your name has been dragged into silent conversations where your intentions were misrepresented. They prayed against your influence, thinking you were building something to threaten them. They misunderstood your purpose and turned their misunderstanding into spiritual opposition. But heaven knows your heart. Heaven knows your assignment. Tonight, every prayer that misinterpreted your purpose is being erased. Some have prayed for God to expose you, not because you carry hidden secrets, but because they want your light dimmed. They want the crowd around you to disperse. They want your confidence shaken. They want your influence questioned. Their request to God is not rooted in truth, but in the desire to see you embarrassed. But the God who defends the innocent is standing for you. Tonight, every prayer requesting your humiliation is being revoked. Your destiny has been mentioned on altars built on wounded egos. Some cried against you because you succeeded where they expected to win. Some prayed against you because God answered you faster than them. Some pleaded with heaven to consider their loyalty and shut down your momentum. But God is not biased by emotional bargaining. Heaven is a place of justice, not comparison. Tonight, justice is speaking for you. There are individuals who pray in circles, mentioning your name indirectly to avoid guilt. They speak in parables before God, hoping that he will understand who they mean without them confessing their jealousy. They hide behind spiritual language, yet their hearts carry arrows. But God is not deceived by poetic prayers. He sees the target behind every metaphor. Tonight, every coded prayer against you is being dismantled. Some have asked God to transfer your opportunities to them because they felt more deserving. They told heaven that you were not ready for the level you entered. They argued that your door opened too quickly. They used your name as the reason for their stagnation. But destiny is not transferred by prayer. Destiny is designed by God. Tonight, every attempt to exchange your blessing is being overturned. Your name has been used as a complaint more than it has been used as a blessing in certain hearts. People who claim to support you have presented you as a burden before God. They told him that your progress makes them feel small. They asked heaven to balance things by slowing you down. But God does not treat progress as a burden. Tonight, every prayer that made your rising a problem is being nullified. There are people who feel that your existence overshadows their identity. They prayed for God to shift attention away from you. They asked him to reduce your presence so they could feel visible again. But God's spotlight is not controlled by human discomfort. When he shines on you, no private whisper can turn off the light. Tonight, every voice requesting your dimming is being silenced. Some have prayed for God to remove your supporters so that you stand alone. They fear the strength of your influence. They worry about the connections God is sending your way. So they targeted your relationships in prayer, asking God to disconnect you from helpers and surround you with silence. But God is a builder of support systems. Tonight, every prayer targeting your helpers is being rejected. There are individuals who asked God to complicate your decisions so you would make mistakes. They prayed for confusion to enter your path, not through witchcraft, but through jealousy. They hoped that one wrong turn would weaken your progress. But God is not the author of confusion. Tonight, clarity is being restored to your steps as every jealous request fades away. Your destiny has survived emotional storms, silent jealousy, hidden prayers, and spiritual sabotage disguised as intercession. The fact that you are still rising is proof that heaven has already refused many petitions made against you. Tonight marks another layer of divine protection as every voice that seeks your downfall is silenced. This is the hour where every hidden voice speaking your name in negativity loses its power. This is the hour where heaven cleans your spiritual atmosphere. This is the hour where God himself becomes the guardian of your destiny, ensuring that no private prayer can interfere with his public promise over your life. There are people whose spirits cannot celebrate your rising because your elevation exposes their stagnation. Instead of seeking God for their own breakthrough, they seek him to pause yours. They kneel before him, not with worship, but with comparison. They use prayer as a place of complaint rather than transformation. They call your name before God, hoping he will revisit his decision about blessing you. But heaven is not a place where envy is rewarded. Tonight, Every prayer rooted in comparison is being shattered. Some have prayed that your progress would trouble them less, not by increasing their blessings, but by decreasing yours. They asked God to shrink your influence so they can feel tall again. They requested heaven to rearrange your destiny to match their comfort. But God does not shrink his children for the satisfaction of others. He expands those he chooses to expand. Tonight, your increase is being sealed beyond the reach of hidden voices. Your rising has become a silent test for many hearts around you. Some failed that test without ever speaking a word. Their prayers betrayed the condition of their souls. They stood before God with lips that appeared pure, but hearts that carried rivalry. They whispered petitions meant to destabilize you, but God shields the innocent from the internal wars of others. Tonight, every destructive intention disguised as prayer is being uprooted. There are individuals who cannot bear the thought of your testimony. They fear what your next victory will reveal about their lack of movement. So they pray that your doors will slow down while theirs open. They ask heaven to delay your next season until they feel ready. But destiny does not wait for the insecurities of others. God moves according to purpose, not human readiness. Tonight, every petition requesting your delay is denied. Some have sought to bind your destiny through prophetic language spoken in false humility. They prayed prayers that sounded spiritual but were contaminated with competition. They used deep words to mask shallow intentions. They prayed for God to expose your character, not because it needed exposing, but because your rising exposed theirs. Yet God knows the truth behind every spiritual expression. Tonight, every false prophetic prayer against you is returning to dust. Your name has been used in midnight prayers by those who fear your influence. They see your potential and call it a threat. They see your assignments and call them disruptions. Instead of asking God to enlarge their own capacity, they ask him to reduce yours. But God does not shrink his vessels for the comfort of those who refuse growth. Tonight, your capacity is expanding beyond the reach of envy-driven prayers. There are friends who pray for you during the day and pray against you at night without ever admitting their conflict. They love your smile but fear your speed. They clap for you publicly but kneel privately to question your favor. Their souls are torn between support and jealousy. But God is not confused by double hearts. He listens to truth, not performance. Tonight, every double-hearted prayer spoken with your name is being silenced. Some have prayed that your path would become unclear so they could feel needed again. They enjoyed being your guide when you were struggling. But when God began directing your steps clearly, they felt displaced. They asked heaven to return you to confusion so that you would depend on them. But God is not returning you to any place he delivered you from. Tonight, clarity is being restored permanently, and every prayer for your confusion is canceled. There are individuals who observe your growth with secret panic. They fear that if you continue rising, you will surpass the boundaries they built to contain you. So they pray for God to humble you prematurely. They ask him to restrain your influence. They seek to place spiritual limits on a life God already liberated. But heaven does not respond to fear disguised as concern. Tonight, your freedom is being solidified. Some have turned your blessings into a spiritual argument. They challenge God privately, asking why you were accelerated while they remained stuck. They believe your rising is unfair. They pray for divine adjustment, hoping God will slow you down to match their rhythm. But heaven does not slow down a chariot because a walker feels left behind. Tonight, every prayer requesting divine imbalance against your destiny is rejected. Your name has been spoken on altars where people disguised control as intercession. They asked God to align your steps with theirs, not for partnership but for possession. They prayed for influence over your decisions. They asked to be spiritual authorities over your destiny without divine approval. But God never hands his children over to the desires of others. Tonight, every controlling prayer spoken over your life is losing power. There are people who cannot handle the idea that God chose you for things they thought belonged to them. They believed they were first in line. They believed the oil was meant for them. When it flowed on you, their hearts erupted in private disappointment. Their disappointment turned into quiet petitions, designed to halt your advancement. But God does not withdraw his oil, because someone else expected it. Tonight, every prayer resisting your anointing is falling flat. Some have asked God to limit your resources, because your abundance threatens their narrative. They prefer you dependent, not empowered. They prefer you small, not influential. They prefer you struggling, not flourishing. So they pray for divine limitations, thinking it will protect their comfort. But God delights in overflow. Tonight, every prayer requesting shortage in your life is being overturned. Your name has been taken into private rooms where people prayed that your strength would reduce so theirs could appear greater. They asked heaven to exhaust your energy, wear out your ideas, and drain your motivation. They prayed for burnout without realizing that God is your strength. Tonight, every prayer spoken against your stamina is collapsing under the weight of divine reinforcement. There are individuals who prayed for your relationships to break, not because those relationships were dangerous, but because they were jealous of the love, support, and honor you received. They asked God to separate you from those who value you because they wanted to remain the center of your world. But God will not disconnect you from destiny helpers because someone is insecure. Tonight, every prayer seeking to isolate you is being dissolved. Some prayed for your business, your ministry, or your career to struggle so that their own efforts would appear superior. They asked God to slow your growth because they feared the comparison. They asked him to disrupt your progress so they could feel accomplished. But God does not build one destiny by destroying another. Tonight, every anti-progress prayer spoken over your assignment is being erased. Your name has been whispered in silent confessions of jealousy before God. They admitted their envy not to be healed, but to be heard. They used confession as a justification for their request. They hoped that by admitting their emotion, heaven would validate their petition. But God heals jealousy. He does not empower it. Tonight, every jealous confession turned into prayer is being reversed. Some have prayed that your influence would lose its impact. They asked God to reduce the grace on your words. They prayed that your voice would lose its reach. They requested that your platforms shrink. They believed that if your voice became quiet, their own voices would finally be heard. But God does not silence the voices he raises. Tonight, your influence is being fortified. There are people who pray for you to remain predictable because your growth disrupts their expectations. They want you consistent with their comfort, not consistent with God's calling. They ask heaven to keep you in familiar seasons, so they do not have to adjust themselves. But God is moving you forward whether they approve or not. Tonight, every prayer requesting your stagnation is being nullified. This is the hour where hidden motives are being exposed in the spirit. Every voice that prayed for your limitation, confusion, stagnation, or reduction is losing its authority. Heaven is standing for you. The same God who heard their whispers is now releasing his thunder on your behalf. None of their petitions will stand. There are people who prayed that the doors opening for you would stop halfway. They could handle your beginning, but not your completion. They were comfortable seeing you start, but the thought of you finishing threatens them. So they prayed that your momentum would decrease before you reached fullness. They asked God to slow your journey so theirs would not feel inferior. But the God of completion does not stop what he started. Tonight, every prayer asking for your incompletion is being scattered. Some have cried to God, not for their own destiny to rise, but for yours to plateau. They fear what your next level will mean for them. They fear how your illumination will shift the balance of honor, influence, and relevance. So they pray for God to pause your transition. But destiny does not respond to fear-based petitions. Tonight, your transition is accelerating beyond their reach. Your name has been placed in silent requests for divine correction when there was no error in you. They asked God to check you, discipline you, humble you, or restrain you, not because you needed it, but because they desired it. They prayed for God to intervene in a path he himself designed. But heaven does not correct obedience to comfort another person's insecurity. Tonight, every prayer requesting unnecessary divine correction over your life is being nullified. There are people who prayed for God to take away your confidence because your boldness intimidates their quiet doubt. They asked heaven to reduce your courage so they could feel comfortable in their hesitation. They prayed that your voice would lose its fire so they could remain the loudest in the room. But courage is not a gift that God withdraws because someone asked. Tonight, your confidence is being replenished with double strength. Some prayed that your gift would become confusing to you. They asked God to make your talent feel heavy, your creativity feel stuck, your ideas feel unclear. They hoped that the uncertainty would quiet your impact. But God is not the author of confusion, and he will not confuse his chosen vessels. Tonight, your gift is being reactivated with clarity, precision, and divine sharpness. There are people who look at your favor and assume it was a mistake. They believe heaven elevated the wrong person. They believe God saw the wrong heart. Their prayers attempt to correct what they think was a divine error, but God makes no mistakes. He does not choose at random. He appoints intentionally. Tonight, every prayer calling your blessing a mistake is being overturned by truth. Some prayed that your relationships would weaken because they envy the love and loyalty surrounding you. They asked God to create misunderstandings where unity was flourishing. They prayed for disconnection where God ordained connection. They believed that isolation would make you more dependent on them or diminish your influence. But God will not sabotage your support for the sake of someone else's desire. Tonight, every prayer seeking to break your bonds is collapsing. Your name has been whispered into prayers that hope to drain your joy. They saw your happiness and felt unsettled. They prayed for your smile to fade, your peace to weaken, and your excitement to diminish. They wanted your spirit to grow tired, so theirs could feel superior. But the joy God gives cannot be prayed away by bitterness. Tonight, your joy is being fortified with supernatural peace. Some asked God to close the doors that were never opened by human hands. They assumed your breakthrough was fragile, not knowing it was sealed in eternity before time began. They prayed for your opportunities to vanish so theirs would appear. But when God opens a door, it is spiritual arrogance for anyone to request its closure. Tonight, every anti-door prayer collapses under divine authority. There are people who fear that your rising will expose the areas of their lives they refuse to grow in. So they ask God to slow you down, not for your sake, but for their image. They pray for your delay to preserve their narrative. They seek divine sympathy through emotional language, hoping heaven will prioritize their comfort. But heaven prioritizes truth, not ego. Tonight, every prayer preserving someone's image at the cost of your progress is deleted. Some have cried out to God, asking him to reduce your influence because they cannot handle being influenced by you. They prayed for a shift in spiritual authority, not based on calling, but on competition. They want God to adjust the hierarchy of grace to match their preference. But authority is not assigned by opinion. Tonight, every prayer trying to reverse your spiritual ranking is rejected. Your name has been used in requests for divine silence over your voice. They fear the power of your words. They fear the weight of your declarations. They fear the impact of your wisdom. So they ask God to quiet you. They ask him to let your voice go unnoticed. They ask him to diminish the effect of your speech. But heaven amplifies the voices it endorses. Tonight, every prayer requesting your silence is broken. Some have prayed for your dreams to fade so they can feel comfortable living without dreams. They want your fire to dim so their lack of passion feels justified. They asked God to calm your ambitions so they can remain unchallenged. But God is the author of dreams. He fuels the visions he plants. Tonight, every dream-suppressing prayer spoken against you is being erased. There are people who prayed for your downfall in a gentle tone. Their words sounded loving, but their desires were dark. They asked God to teach you a lesson, hoping the lesson would slow your rising. They asked him to humble you, hoping the humility would reduce your influence. But divine lessons are not weapons for insecure hearts. Tonight, every disguised prayer of downfall is being exposed and neutralized. Some prayed that your future spouse, partner, or destiny connection would not find you quickly. They feared that your emotional stability would empower you too much. They believed that companionship would elevate your strength. So they prayed for delay in your relationships. But love is not withheld because someone fears your wholeness. Tonight, every delay prayer over your connections is broken. Your name has been used in prayers meant to manipulate divine timing. They asked God to move slowly with you so they could catch up. They tried to synchronize your seasons with their own. They prayed that your timing would bend to theirs. Timing is a kingdom principle, not a community decision. Tonight, every attempt to tamper with your divine schedule is being overturned. Some have prayed that your spiritual gifts would lose their accuracy. They fear what you discern. They fear what you see. They fear what God reveals to you. They pray that your insight would dim so their actions remain hidden. But God never dims the eyes of those he appoints as watchers. Tonight, your discernment is being sharpened, not weakened. There are individuals who prayed that your path would become burdensome. They ask God to increase the weight of your journey so that your steps slow down. They believe that heaviness will reduce your spiritual pace. But God carries the burdens of his people. He will not allow someone's jealousy to increase your load. Tonight, your path is being restored to ease. Some prayed that your identity would be questioned by others. They wanted rumors to spread and doubts to rise. They believed that if people stopped trusting you, your influence would be silenced. They prayed for confusion to surround your name, but heaven protects reputations rooted in purity. Tonight, your name is being shielded from every whisper. This is the night where every hidden prayer, silent whisper, disguised petition, and jealous request is meeting divine judgment. Heaven is not only rejecting them, heaven is reversing them. Your destiny is rising untouched. Your voice is strengthening. Your path is clearing. And your future is being fortified with fire. There are people who prayed that your rising would come with hidden burdens so heavy that you would fear success. They asked God to surround your blessings with complications so you would hesitate to step into greatness. They believed that a difficult breakthrough would discourage you from pursuing the next one. But God is not the giver of blessings wrapped in sorrow. Tonight, every prayer asking heaven to attach weight to your progress is being reversed by divine mercy. Some whispered your name to God, asking him to limit your access to the circles he designed for you. They feared what rooms you might enter if you continued rising. They prayed that certain opportunities would remain closed, not because you were unworthy, but because your presence would unsettle their comfort. But when heaven approves your access, no private whisper can revoke the invitation. Tonight, your access is being strengthened by fire. Your name has been mentioned in prayers, requesting your destiny to slow down so that someone else could catch up. They believed life was a race of comparison and prayed for divine leveling that would shrink your progress. They asked God for time to rearrange life to their satisfaction. But destiny is not measured by human pace. God does not synchronize purpose to accommodate insecurity. Tonight, every pace-manipulating prayer is dissolving. There are individuals who prayed that unexpected detours would delay your journey. They asked God to let confusion enter your plans, not to teach you wisdom, but to disrupt your timing. They wanted uncertainty to overshadow your direction so they could feel more in control. Yet the footsteps of the righteous are ordered by the Lord, not by the wishes of others. Tonight, every detour request is being crushed beneath divine direction. Some prayed that your resources would dry up at crucial moments. They asked God to allow your hands to weaken just when your breakthrough was near. They believed scarcity could humble your fire and slow your momentum. But the God who provided for Elijah in famine will not let you run empty. Tonight, your supply line is being strengthened by heaven itself. Your name has been whispered on altars where people asked God to limit the size of your testimony. They feared what a big breakthrough would reveal about their own unwillingness to grow. They prayed for small blessings in your life so they could remain comfortable. But God is not a God of smallness. He is the God of abundance. Tonight, your testimony is being enlarged beyond human expectation. Some prayed that your stability would shake. They asked God to let storms visit you so frequently that you would lose balance. They hoped chaos would blur your vision. and fatigue would weaken your fire. But God steadies those he establishes. Tonight, every shakiness request made against your life is being nullified. There are people who prayed that your influence would attract jealousy so intense that it would drain your spirit. They hoped spiritual warfare would exhaust you into silence. They believed that if your ascent triggered enough conflict, you would step back voluntarily. But heaven equips its warriors. Tonight, strength is rising in you, swallowing every prayer that desired your exhaustion. Some have prayed that the people assigned to bless you would reconsider. They asked God to close the hearts of your helpers, because your favor exposed their lack of progress. They prayed for disconnection, hoping isolation would weaken your momentum. But divine helpers answer only to God, not to jealous whispers. Tonight, your helpers are being stirred again with supernatural remembrance. Your name has been mentioned in petitions, asking God to reduce your visibility. They believed that if the world saw less of you, their own names would shine brighter. They prayed for your platforms to shrink and your influence to quiet. But heaven is increasing your light, not hiding it. Tonight, every visibility-shrinking prayer is being overturned. Some have prayed that your courage would diminish before your assignment reached fullness. They hoped fear would return to your mind and silence your boldness. They believed insecurity would slow your destiny. But God has not given you the spirit of fear. Tonight, divine courage is being poured into your spirit with fresh oil. There are individuals who asked God to let your plans collapse so theirs could stand uncontested. They believed your success overshadowed their efforts. They prayed for disruption in your journey to create space for their own. But God does not build destinies by tearing others. Tonight, every collapse request is evaporating from the spirit realm. Some prayed that your name would attract wrong accusations, so you would battle unnecessary storms. They asked God to allow misunderstandings to rise around you, hoping your reputation would weaken. But God protects the innocent, and he speaks for those misrepresented. Tonight, your name is being shielded by heavenly authority. Your name has been whispered into prayers that hoped your spiritual fire would grow cold. They feared the authority you carried in the spirit. They asked heaven to reduce your intensity so they could feel equally anointed. But fire from God cannot be dimmed by human discomfort. Tonight, your fire is rising even higher. Some have prayed that your destiny would never exceed your family history. They believed that the patterns of your bloodline should define your limits. They asked God to keep you within generational boundaries so no one felt left behind. But God called you to break cycles, not repeat them. Tonight, you are crossing every line drawn against your rising. There are people who prayed that your prosperity would reduce so you would remain dependent on them, emotionally or financially. They feared what financial freedom would mean for your independence. But God is your provider. Tonight, every prayer requesting your financial limitation is being cut off. Some prayed that your influence among people would turn into pressure instead of impact. They hoped increased responsibility would crush your confidence. They believed leadership would exhaust you, but God equips those he calls. Tonight, every pressure request is being reversed into divine strength. Your name has been used in petitions, asking God to close certain doors that he opened for expansion. They feared your enlargement. They wanted your territory to remain small enough to manage. But you were born for wide spaces. Tonight, your borders are expanding by divine decree. Some prayed that you would lose stamina in prayer, worship, and spiritual pursuit. They believed spiritual weakness would halt your rising. But God renews strength like the eagle. Tonight, every prayer targeting your spiritual vitality is being rejected. This is the night where heaven restores everything that secret voices tried to bury. This is the night your name is removed from every altar of jealousy. This is the night your destiny rises untouched and unstoppable. Every prayer not authored by God concerning your life is silenced forever. Tonight, heaven takes your name out of every hidden place where it was spoken with wrong intention. Every whisper meant to wound you is losing its voice. Every petition meant to limit you is losing its power. Every altar where your name was misused is losing its fire. The God who hears in secret is correcting in secret and defending in public. Every voice raised against your destiny is falling silent. Every agenda designed in darkness is collapsing under the weight of divine judgment. Every jealous tongue that spoke delay into your path is being swallowed by the authority of God. Your future is no longer vulnerable to private prayers. Your destiny is no longer influenced by hidden desires. Heaven has taken over your case. From this moment forward, only the voice of God will speak into your tomorrow. Only the voice of God will define your identity. Only the voice of God will influence your rising. The whispers of men will not shape your path. The fears of others will not rewrite your journey. The jealousy of hearts will not hinder your blessing. You are moving into a season of divine silence over every enemy and divine amplification over every promise. Walk in confidence. Walk in victory. Walk in supernatural assurance. For God has silenced every hidden voice seeking your downfall. And now your destiny is rising with unstoppable fire. This is your everlasting solution.